Hello, welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. In the series Freemasonry and Satanism, series number 68, part 3 of this book, The Work of All Ages. It's just a nice small book, about 227 pages, of a synopsis of the history of the Jewish people, whether they're Philistine, Hebrews from ancient times, Zionist Jews from today, and their affiliations and activities with the popes, kings and queens, secret services, Freemasons, Illuminati, Satanism, and all the other goings-on in the world, unbeknownst to most of the public. Hence, we have the problems we have today. People just don't know what to believe, so I do book reviews. And granted, the author of this book is fallible. He can make mistakes. That's why I do lots of book reviews, so we can see the common denominators and try to figure out what the truth is. In the last video I made, we left off with the chapter 13 on Freemasonry. Got this interesting picture here. There's the Freemasons with Baphomet, the devil, Lucifer, Satan, Baal, called by many names. And the many names, of course, would be the many gods, which makes it pagan. And the first commandment of the 10 commandments on the two tablets that Moses retrieved from the mountain when he went up to talk to God for 40 days, which he had to go up there twice, because the first time when he came down with the tablets, the Hebrews, now called the Jews, had collected all the gold and built a golden calf, and were having a drunken orgy party, worshiping the golden calf, the religion of Egypt, the Pharaoh, that they had just escaped from. Just interesting. So Freemasonry is a creation of the Jewish folks for secret societies to gain control over the Gentile population of the world, because the Freemasonic lodges are everywhere, as we went over in the New Age magazines published by the Freemasons throughout the 1901, 1910, 1920, 1950, 1960, 1970. We've gone over some of those New Age Scottish Rite magazines. Maybe we'll take another look at them as a refresher. But anyways, chapter 14 is the Rothschilds. The banksters. Here's an interesting picture here. Mr. Rothschild with two vultures pulling him in a money chest. So some kind of creative artist rendition over the years, kind of telling the story with a picture. The money chest and the vultures preying off us citizens, or as they call us, goyim, which means cattle. So the Rothschilds, and I only do my highlighted portion here. Please go if you're interested. Want to seek the truth? Find the book. Alright, so moving on quickly here. He planned to cause a revolution in France to advance his agenda, Mr. Rothschilds. Meyer Amschel Bauer started his career as a goldsmith, silversmith, and coin dealer. He changed his name to Rothschild, German for Red Shield. He had ambitions to achieve great things, apparently at the expense of millions and millions and millions of people. World War I, World War II, French Revolution, Russian Revolution, all kinds of revolution, Chinese Revolution, the war between the North and the South in the United States, Vietnam War, the Middle East, 9/11, New World Order, New Age. They want to destroy the world's belief and knowledge of Jesus coming to planet Earth and died on the cross so our sins could be forgiven. These people are promoting the decadent chaos and anarchy lifestyle. Mad Max, the movie Hunger Games, Divergent, and so many more. Anyways, today is September 23rd, and an ominous day if you've been watching the videos on YouTube. Some proclaim it was a day when a gigantic asteroid was going to hit the ocean, cause all kinds of tsunamis. So what day is it? Of course, the Bible says, no man shall know the day or the hour. Alright, he stated that men are inclined to do evil. That's what Rothschild stated. Rather than good. So they should be governed by violence and terrorism rather than by reasoning. By the laws of nature, right lies in force. So that's what we're dealing with. Somebody who thinks like that. He said that political freedom is an idea, not a fact. Control could be obtained by preaching liberalism to the electorate, population, persuading them to surrender a little of their power at a time. Capital is entirely in our hands, he told his friends. And again, I'm only reading a few sentences to give us the gist here of what we're dealing with. These 2 pages look like I got quite a bit to read. Moving on. Any means to reach the goal is justified. Rulers use cunning and deception. Frankness and honesty are vices in politics. So frankness and honesty are not desired if you want to succeed in politics. Our right lies in force. We can use force to reconstruct all existing institutions, he said. The power of our resources must remain invisible until the very moment when it has gained such a strength that no cunning or force can undermine it. Sounds like the protocols of Zion. Premature exposure would risk destroying the work of centuries. The ruler must use mob psychology. Think about those gun shooting and riots in the street. You get 100 people murdered out there, but they find one cop shooting a black person and they bring it to the top of the news and create the riots. And the poor people get out there and break windows and everything else, falling for the whole ploy. Everything is planned. These people are in control. You don't think they cause what they do, what happens? Of course they do. They own the media. The ruler must use mob psychology. Absolute despotism is necessary to control. I'm losing my language here. The mindless mob. That's what they think of us people. Mindless mobs. All forms of vice, including alcohol, drugs, moral corruption, must be used to corrupt the morals of youth. Bribery, deceit, and treachery will serve our ends. The state has the right to seize property by any means, if by doing so it secures submission and sovereignty. Liberty, equality, and fraternity are terms we have used since ancient times to control the masses. So the first thing they do is they create the pain and suffering, and then they promise you they're going to set you free from the pain and suffering that they caused. And the masses fall for it. But they have no place in nature. We have set up an aristocracy of money and wealth. We should foment wars to place governments in debt to us and to direct the peace process to our benefit. Public officials should be chosen from those who would be servile and obedient to our commands and pawns in our games. Makes me think of all the presidents during my lifetime. We must control all outlets of public information in order to spread our propaganda. Bad times must be blamed on others. We must appear to be champions of the workers, even though our goal is the killing of the goyim. That would be anybody that's not a Jew, and goyim means cattle. Industrial depressions and financial panics can be brought about to serve our purposes. We can create unemployment, hunger, shortages of food. We must infiltrate Freemasonry, set up Grand Orient lodges of our own. We must carry out subversion under the cloak of philanthropy, charity. We should use high-sounding phrases to mask our intentions. They come up with some really good ones. Black Lives Matter. Of course Black Lives Matter. Everybody's lives matter. But they need to stir the black people up. Just like they did with the gay agenda and all that propaganda, that now they're taken to the nth degree, including transgenderism and pansexual and bisexual and even adultery and pedophilia with children. Come on, people got rights. Only Christians would be haters to disagree with that. As Aleister Crowley said with his book on the law, do as thou wilt. Lavish promises can be made to the masses, and opposite done afterwards. Like Obama says, there will be change. I'll close Gitmo. I'll do a lot of things. I think he's done more than Bush has on the warring issue, and certainly nothing has changed for the better in the country. People are getting broker. Israel's moving forward and gaining more control over the U.S. and the world and Europe. Think about the Ukraine. Think about all the countries in the Middle East. We can use revolutionary war, street fighting, and the reign of terror. After wars, secret diplomacy must be used to promote our ends without revealing our secret power behind the scenes. World government is the ultimate goal. Huge monopolies must be established to counter the largest fortunes of the goyim. And they want to even privatize airports, interstates, everything, water companies, farming. Who is going to own all these private companies? Who owns them all now? A handful of people. These people, the Illuminati. Jewish people, Zionist Jewish people. Not the good Jewish people trying to warn us. And maybe they're not Jewish at all, like Revelation says, 9. Jews who call themselves Jews, but are not. We should wonder who these people are who have been causing all this chaos and anarchy behind the scenes with these secret schools of Babylon, a satanic Luciferian interdimensional demonic being world that they are incommunicado with, which we've exposed and will review more. This spiritual world is real. I know a lot of people have been brainwashed to believe it isn't. But even the cartoons, the TV shows, go watch Texas Rangers, the occultism is up to here. Crazy. They control the TV programming. Alright, economic war must be waged to rob the goyim of their land and industries, using high taxes, unfair competition, and control of raw materials and creation of labor unrest. And with the internet now, I noticed, I own a business. And so I don't think I can compete in business if I'm not submissive to Google, these people behind the scenes controlling the internet, because they can see every email, all my marketing, all the places where I advertise. They can probably steal or misdirect my leads. I know I was looking at a seed magazine to buy some vegetable garden seeds, and I accidentally typed in a link that was for a tiller to till the ground. And I said, well, it's not the website I wanted, so I went to another one. But then for a week or two, every time I went on the computer, there was that ad up on the top right for a particular brand of earth tiller to till the ground to plant your seeds. They knew that I had typed in that key and who I was, and they were trying to sell it to me over and over, day after day, week after week. And it did dawn on me that these people with my laptop or my computer or my cell phone, probably this iPad, these people are watching me, monitoring me. It's not even paranoia. You can test it for yourself. Go look up, like you want to take a vacation, and just go to one of the travel websites and type in some particular place you'd like to go. And then watch the commercials and all the advertisement come up every time you get on your computer for anything. They knew what you did. And then if you pay them, like Google calls me pretty much every day, trying to help me, or they say, you pay them money to get in some kind of slot where people in my area will contact me. And I'm rejecting them. Hence, I'm probably in an unfair advantage to do business. Just saying. The world that's coming will be difficult for those of us who resist to be able to do business, period. I believe that's the plan. Alright, the buildup of armaments should be encouraged so that the Goyim should destroy each other in warfare. So they want us to get in a war with Iran. They want all this turmoil to happen. While they sit back and watch everybody kill each other, while they have to sell all the weapons and machinery and food and supplies, and they're making money, which they've done throughout history. In the New World Order, members of the One World Government would be appointed by the dictator from the elite in science, economics, finance, and industry. We must infiltrate the youth of all classes to corrupt them and to teach them false principles. I think the parents out there in the world need to wake up. They're destroying your children. And you younger people, when you have children, they're going to destroy your children. Existing laws need to be changed. Existing laws need not be changed, but they can be rendered confusing and subject to arbitration. We will set up underground forces to prevent the Goyim from rising up in arms against us. So they got infiltrators everywhere. So should people try to meet over at Tom's house or down at the local church, it's probably somebody spying on the group. They've infiltrated everything. They've thought of everything. They monitor. They know what you use on your credit card, debit card. And let's say you want to pay cash, but you want that discount, you got to use the grocery chain discount card, swipe it. They found a way to track everything. They know what you buy. Rothschild then financed the Order of Illuminati, to be discussed in the next chapter. So what was this chapter called? This is the Rothschilds. Near the end of the 19th century, that would have been 1880, somewhere around there, Zionism arose. And I think it was 1880 something. Theodore Herschel wrote The State of Israel, that book we went over. And coincidentally, Theodore Herschel worked at one of the Rothschild printing press companies, publishing companies. Huh. Just a little look at stuff and you see it's all connected. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, we've been going over those, appeared on the scene containing many of Rothschild's ideas. Meyer Amschel Rothschild established his first bank in Frankfurt in 1798, starting, I don't know, I'm seeing one thing and reading another, starting what was to become the greatest banking empire of all time, which is destroying the world. in 1913 over the Christmas vacation in cahoots with President Woodrow Wilson. They created the Federal Reserve, which these Rothschilds own. So they controlled our money. They have presses now. They can just print money at will, loan it to our government, and to us charge interest, and it's nothing more than paper. You want to borrow $1 million? No problem. Sign here. You owe us the million plus 10%. And get on the microphone. Print out $1 million off the presses. What's it cost them? $1,000? $500 to print off $1 million? Invisible, fake money. He trained his 5 sons in the banking business. Near the end of his life, he instructed his sons to establish banks in major cities of Europe. All right, well, we got a little bit left. Rothschilds. We talk about them a lot. So like I said, this is a good book for a synopsis of everything that we've been talking about. Books this thick together, if we stack them up, this guy gives a good synopsis. In charge of the existing bank in Frankfurt, Germany, Solomon was sent to Vienna, Austria, Nathan to London, England, Charles to Naples, Italy, and James to Paris, France, to open up banks. I think the Rockefellers and Chases and Morgans were in cahoots with the Federal Reserve in the United States. Nathan turned out to be the most successful. He established N.M. Rothschilds & Son in London, a bank which exists to this day, as does the Paris Bank. Nathan is famous for making a fortune on the bond market. After the defeat of Napoleon at Waterloo, using his superior intelligence network to get news of the battle before it became commonly known. It's warm out here today. The Rothschilds are famous for their passion of keeping their activities secret from the public. They do things through others. Their wealth is not disclosed in any magazines or financial newspapers. They have always worked together as a family and have not let outsiders become principals in their banks. They have always worked closely with other major international bankers, Jewish or otherwise. They specialize in making large loans to governments. They create demand for loans by creating financial panics, depressions, famines, wars, and revolutions. They were instrumental in creating the Round Table groups in England through their agent Lord Alfred Milner. These groups led the creation of the Royal Institute of International Affairs in the United Kingdom, the Council of Foreign Relations in the United States, and similar organizations throughout the English-speaking world. Today, these groups are primary vehicle which the Rothschilds use to communicate their orders to the national governments. Thus, we see the existence of a well-thought-out plan for world domination. Rothschild then financed the Order of Illuminati. Near the end of the 19th century, Zionism arose. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion appeared on the scene, containing many of Rothschild's ideas. Moving on, the Order of the Illuminati. Looks like underlined quite a bit there. Here we go. The Order of the Illuminati. In order to further his plan for world domination, Meyer Amschel Rothschild financed a group called the Order of Illuminati, sometimes called the Bavarian Illuminati, to distinguish it from other Illuminist groups. That would be groups into the secret occultic, Kabbalah, and other witchcraft organizations, Rosicrucians. And in some cases, I'm not really opposed for human beings to investigate reality. The ability to heal using dowsing rods to find water, seeking knowledge. But when it's used for evil and kept from the public, therein lies the problem. And throughout the ages, they've tried to keep this stuff from the public. I can name 2 instances real easy. One was the Library of Alexandria, that the Pope and the Christian Catholic Church in Rome, Alexandria was over there in the Greek area, had the library for thousands of years of materials with all this knowledge. And so they burned it. They wanted to erase it from the minds of man. The other one I can think of is South America, Central America. When the conquistadors would march from the shore inland to Mexico City. It wasn't called Mexico City back then. Peru, Brazil. The first place they went to was the Shama's hut. And I guess they got what they wanted, his artifacts and information, proceeded to kill him, and then started slaughtering the natives and taking the gold. But they wanted that Shama's knowledge, Shamas who go into meditative states using some kind of drugs, whatever, communicating with the divine to get cures or solve problems for the tribe. So all over the world, these people in high places like the Vatican, the Jesuits, the Zionist high-level Jewish people running King Solomon's temple and other places all over the world, Smithsonian Institute. We'll dig up in your backyard and find a 30-foot skeleton of a human. They'll be on you like a SWAT team, confiscated as soon as it hits the local newspaper. It disappears and you're threatened to shut up or you'll be killed or something. What are they hiding? Thinking the Grand Canyon once, some miner meandered into a cave and there were artifacts like you would find in an Egyptian tomb. How did they get in the Grand Canyon in the United States? Smithsonian was in there like a SWAT team. Took all the artifacts, threatened everybody to shut up, blew up the entrance to the cave. This is stuff I've studied. I think Stephen Quayle wrote that book, Giants. You can look it up on the internet, or go to stephenquayle.com. It shows you all the pictures. Some of the heads of those giants were the size of washing machines. 5 or 6 guys standing around the head. And all this stuff's in the Bible. My point is, they were trying to conceal all this secret knowledge from the rest of us. Why? Control. Illuminati is a Latin word meaning enlightened or illumined. In modern practice, it has become a collective term for any group of elitists who pursue the New World Order and global governance by the rich and powerful. The Order of Illuminati was formed by Adam Weishaupt on May 1st, 1776. As a result, May 1 is an important date to this day in Illuminist and communist circles. The Jewish Zionists are at the head of the snake, as well as the Illuminati banksters are at the head of the snake, and even probably the Roman leaders of the empire, the Caesars, the pharaohs of Egypt, are the heads of these snakes. It's not just one organization. They're all one organization, but they've got offices or locations or societies all over the world. They control communism, the New World Order effort, the New Age, which controls socialism, which controls liberalism, which is all trying to destroy Christianity. They hate Jesus. You got to ask yourself why. Jesus exposed them when he was alive. Overthrew the money changers' table in the Bible. Adam Weishaupt was originally a Jew, being born to a Jewish parents. He was educated by Jesuits. See what I'm saying? I'm tying the Jesuits in with this. With the Jews trying to get into the New World Order, not all Jews, and converted to Catholicism, at least nominally. So they did infiltrate the Catholic Church for appearances and control purposes. In reality, he was an atheist. He became a professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria. Here we go, Bavaria. A Jewish institution. This was a group of free thinkers, liberalism, modeled somewhat on the earlier Rosicrucian and Spanish Illuminados. Wusthof was a Freemason, used their idea of a series of degrees, and in this case 13 degrees leading to Rex King at the top of the pyramidal hierarchy. Its ideas go back to the mystery schools of ancient Greece and Egypt, those pyramids, as does Freemasonry. Each member was given a secret code name. The organization had several basic goals. This is Peter Christian who wrote this book. Is he right 100% on everything? I think not. Is he generally right? Probably. You can look up him and what else he did and who he was, like I do. So the goals: the destruction of Christianity and all monarchies, the destruction of nations in favor of internationalism. So they want to destroy nations because they're in favor of internationalism, ruling the world, privatizing everything, which means they own everything, and nobody else, you or I, not part of their group, will ever rise to that kind of goals in life, success. They don't want competition. I think a Rothschild once said, or was it Rockefeller, competition is evil. The discouragement of national patriotism in favor of universal brotherhood. Meanwhile, with Elia, they'd tell all those people from all over the world they're recruiting Jews, forcing Jews to leave, creating horrible situations in countries, so they want to flee, to go to Israel, where nobody else but a Jew can immigrate there. And they want to have pride in their nationalism, but they want the rest of us to not have pride in our nationalism. And George Bush said, Sr., that eventually all Americans will pledge allegiance to the United Nations, which they control. The abolition of family ties in marriage. We know they're trying to destroy normalcy. Mother and father and little boys. Even in one school, I keep reminding myself, the teacher said we're going to have Bender Gender Week. You boys can come dressed as girls, and you girls can come dressed as boys. Bender Gender. It's crazy. The suppression of private property rights and inheritance. So they don't want you to pass any wealth, anything you build up onto your children. But they have these corporations that are going to own everything. People don't really realize what communism is. Socialism is. You can't depend on the government for a handout. They might feed you for a while to coach you along, the Pied Piper, you know, lead everybody along, beguilement. But once they get you where they want you, under their control, they're not going to feed you, give you beer, drugs, all the things they've been giving you, money, checks in the mail, food stamps. Not on your life. Well, it will be your life. It's like in Russia when they did the Russian Revolution in 1917. They killed over 100 million people, so it is said, Christians and other good people, basically through starvation. A lot of them through quick trials and shooting them or hanging them or beheading them, I don't know. It was a horrible state of affairs. 1917 to around 1927. So I suspect if they have the revolution in the United States by creating all these animosity between groups like whites and blacks and straights and gays and Americans and Muslims, Arabs, or Americans and Mexicans, and all the different men against women, rich against poor, the New Age people against Christians. They're fermenting all this stuff. Anybody who doesn't get that is just blind. They're sticking their head in a hole. Republicans against Democrats. They're both parties are the same people. Doesn't matter who wins. These people control them. But you can't get people out of their normalcy bias. They're stuck. The Democrats are evil, says the Republican. The Republicans are evil, says the Democrat. And they won't change their mind. They both burning hatred that the other party is evil. How can they both be right? Can they both be wrong? I suspect so. Wusthof linked his group to Freemasonry at the Masonic Convention in Wilhelmsbad in 1782, creating Illuminated Freemasons, a secret society within a secret society. The organization was exposed by a freak accident in 1785. I've mentioned this before. Sometimes I didn't have the exact details in my hand, but when I go over enough of these books, we get to the exact details. Who, what, and where. 1785, a freak accident. One of the members, Jacob Lang, was struck by lightning and killed. Secret papers about the Illuminati were found on his person. That led to searches of other members' homes. The Elector of Bavaria was shocked to learn of the subversive nature of the group and banned its further existence in 1786, just 10 years after it was founded. So they discovered their planned documents. They had put in writing what they were going to do. This was by no means the end of Luminism. However, organizations may go out of existence and individuals will die sooner or later, but ideas will go on forever. The work of the order was carried on in reading societies and subscription libraries. They influenced printing houses, bookseller shops, and newspapers. One offshoot was the Jacobin Society, which was instrumental in setting off the French Revolution in 1789, one of the Rothschilds' objectives. So they had to take control of France, so they got the poor people to rise up and smash all the business owner windows and take all their merchandise and probably kill them. And a lot of people were beheaded. The French Revolution was a horrible revolution. Two writers of the time wrote exposés of the Illuminati. In 1797, Abbé Augustin de Bourreau traced Freemasonry and the Illuminati back to the Manichaeans, who had been declared heretics in the 3rd century AD. Wow, it goes all the way back to right after Jesus. He also wrote about the Jacobins and their involvement in the French Revolution. In 1798, John Robinson was the professor of natural philosophy of the University of Edinburgh, wrote Proofs of a Conspiracy. This was 1798. You talk to a lot of people now, and the conspiracy theory, get out of here, I don't believe it. Meanwhile, if they pay attention to what's going on in their world, Jade Helm and UN vehicles and even UN tanks on trains and trucks and moving all across and being placed all over the United States. Equipment being purchased, hollow point bullets, shrapnel dispersing bullets, drones. We all know about the spying on phones and computers and TV and credit cards, and they know everything. And probably keep it in a great big computer called the Beast. They have a computer called the Beast, and it compiles all the information. So they know everything about everybody. So he wrote about the proofs of a conspiracy against all of the religions and governments of Europe by Freemasons, Illuminati, and reading societies. In later years, many organizations were formed to carry out the goal of world government by the elite. Among these are the Order Templi Orientis. There's a guy called Freedom Fly on YouTube who does videos, has a website. Check him out. He talks a lot about the Ordo Templi Orientis and the secret societies. William Cooper, Bill Cooper, the Mystery Schools of Babylon talks a lot about it. And we talked about Tex Mars, he talks a lot about it. Henry McHale talks a lot about it. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of the videos that I've made, a lot of the books I've read. Steve Quayle, Infowars.com. And some of these internet groups who are exposing the information, I'm a little suspect of. Because when they start printing articles that the Arabs are actually the evil ones, I know they're lying. Then they say things that Christians are haters, I know they're lying. Some Christian person doesn't want to give licenses for gay people to get married. You know, and they start twisting it around. They give you a lot of truth, then you'll buy the little lie they want to give you. They're very twisted, psychopathic in their method, trying to get to our brains, and social thinking, social change. See the word change? You got to be quick to catch this stuff, though. Golden Dawn, Skull and Bones, George Bush, John Kerry, Bohemian Society, Bohemian Grove in California, where Alex Jones sneaked in there with a video camera and videotaped the satanic ritual with a gigantic owl and throwing a baby in the fire at the bottom of the owl, dressed in long robes, shipping gay men in, so it's all said, and much more. The cremation of care ceremony, and the screeching and Halloween is, screeching and hollowing, screaming is like right out of a Halloween movie. Go look, you gotta go see it. They're on YouTube. What else here? And many others. Nestor Webster, I've gone over her books, I've read her books, identified many of them in her 1924 book, Secret Societies and Subversive Movements. So people have been exposing this stuff for a long time. Rabbi Marvin Antelman. David Icke is exposing a lot. But again, I see him talking about on TV now about everything is a hologram and ascending, but he exposes a lot of the insane criminal activity going on with the people, the kings and queens and presidents and officers. So it's kind of hard sometimes to really make sure these people are on the up and up. I know I talk about the spiritual aspect of all of this, the occultic, the witchcraft, because it's a reality. I mean, even in the Bible, Jesus was casting out demons. But when I watch David Icke and he starts dwelling on that the mind over matter and all this, and he apparently when he was younger was anti-Jesus, it just puts me on the fence. And I love David Icke. But sometimes, you know, you have to question what you have to use your brain and come to your own conclusions. The phone ringeth, my day job. Alright, today modern illuminists are very active in preparing for the final steps towards world domination. Is there any doubt about it? The Pope's talking about it. Presidents are talking about it. It's in the newspaper. World currency. World government. George Bush said that we'll all pledge allegiance to the United Nations. World religion. All prophesized in the Bible. And it's going to be the Lucifer satanic religion. And if we don't swear allegiance and take the mark of the beast, I think on the forehead or the right arm, probably off with your head. Crazy? They are preparing selected children for leadership positions. Those who will be the enforcers are being trained in crowd control and military tactics. They control all sources of information reaching the public. Mind control is being applied to the general public so that they will actually welcome the taking of power. So people are going to welcome this when it comes in, though. Society will be so insane, chaos and anarchy, that when they offer this thing, everybody's going to say, yeah. They're going to embrace it. Drugs, any kind of sex you want. Booze, wine, beer. Tempting. Alright, well, we know that Satan controls earth and he does tempt people. And the commandments are meant for you to obey. Don't kill, don't steal, don't do adultery, don't covet, don't lust after what your friends and neighbors have, don't bear false witness, only one God, no blasphemy about God, honor thy mother and father. Not too difficult. Don't worship other gods. Obey the Sabbath. Alright. They control all sources of information reaching the public. Mind control is being applied to the general public so that they will actually welcome the taking of power. Resistors will be imprisoned or killed. And if you look on YouTube, truck drivers have exposed that some of their truckloads of shipments to army bases or FEMA camps are guillotines. Oh my God. They planned and conducted the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 to achieve their agenda. When the time is right, they will cause a financial collapse, which will cause many governments to collapse. Panic will set in. Can you see it now? No grocery stores, no water, no toothpaste, no pharmaceuticals, no medicine. You see how people will have no social security checks, no access to your bank account. Now you know why they want to confiscate the guns. What's with this of them trying to vaccinate all of us with something? What is it they want to stick in us when we know they think like this? Makes you wonder. It could be some kind of triggerable chemical that can be activated by a certain frequency from your cell phone or something that will kill you. They will declare a state of emergency and declare martial law. A new monetary system will be introduced. Millions of useless eaters, those of us who are just living off the system and not providing them with any benefit to them, will be slaughtered. Their long-awaited millennium may be close at hand. The work of all ages. All right. That was on the chapter, The Order of the Illuminati. Next, I said in the last video, the Kabbalah. Let's talk about that. We see all those satanic rituals on TV. Football halftime show, Grammys. If you don't know what a Kali or Shiva ritual looks like, go back and watch Indiana Jones and see the rituals, and they're lowering the girl down on the grate into the molten lava. And other movies. Even cartoons. Even CERN has a video out with their employees doing a Kali ritual dance. It's plain to see. As I keep saying, you don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to see all this stuff. You just got to open your mind and open your brain. And that's why I do these videos, to just share what I learn. Kabbalah is the Hebrew word meaning tradition. Kabbalah. So Kabbalah is a Hebrew word. So even Madonna's into the Kabbalah. Hollywood's into the Kabbalah. Lots of people are into this stuff. It's a Hebrew word. That should tell you something. It is sometimes thought to be an evil thing, linked to black magic and various heresies. But in reality, it is an attempt to experience the living God by means of silent prayer, meditation, and contemplation, and other means. It is a part of a broad field of mysticism, which is part of all the major religions, including Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Kabbalah is just the Jewish version of mysticism. And I say, used for evil, it's witchcraft. And they have secret societies, like the Freemasons, and many others, under threat of death. You can't expose the goings-on and knowledge you learn inside the lodge. Under threat of death. Swearing on the Bible, which God says not to do. Jesus said you shouldn't swear on the Bible. The Hebrew Bible is the principal source of Western mysticism, premises and symbolism. Everybody's sucking it up as the New Age, thinking it's so cool. Studying the yoga, studying all this other stuff, herborology. And again, in ancient past, all this stuff was natural abilities, shamans, taking a drug, going into the spiritual world, getting cures for this material world, healing children. So it's not necessarily that I'm against it. I'm against secrecy and what are they doing with this knowledge? Like voodoo. I have a general understanding how voodoo works. It's not so difficult. I know why a psychic needs a piece of your hair or your fingernail clippings to be able to find out where you were, or maybe go to the scene and see who killed you. I understand how that stuff works a little bit. I've been studying it for years. It's vibrational technology. We all have a different vibration. And the two vibrations usually have a link between them. If you take two pianos, let's use guitars, and you strike the A key, the other guitar, if it's perfectly tuned, the A key will go, will start vibrating on its own, because there'll be a frequency between the two. And this is the same thing with human beings, but it's on a much higher level frequency. So voodoo, what you need is a piece of hair, a fingernail clipping, or clothing, and you make a little doll, because everything is manifestation, visualization. So you know, because you have some of the DNA of the person, that there's a link between the two. You have to have some of their hair, some of their fingernail clippings, some of their skin, some of their saliva, some of their clothing. And then if you look at the doll, and you take a pin, and the thought, it's a thought form, you stab the doll. That vibrational thing between the doll and the person, that's a carrier for that signal. And the person gets that vibration as if they've actually been stabbed. Voodoo. Just saying. Stuff's crazy. But it's basically advanced science. Quantum physics. Witchcraft, if you're using it for evil. To take over the world. Why do you think they burned the Library of Alexander? This shaman's hut in South America, in Europe. All that secret hieroglyphics on the Egyptian temples. What do you think they know? CERN, with the Shiva, demonic god, statue out front. The 666 and the beast in the label. In the Bible it says Lucifer, Satan, and a third of the angels were cast out for subversive activities in heaven. And I guess the earth is their residence, and they cause all kinds of havoc and destruction to the rest of us. We are spiritual beings in these biological bodies. To me, it's even more science than religion. It's just, if you investigate it, it's just science and fact. Nobody gets off planet Earth alive, I say. So the Hebrew Bible is the principal source of Western mysticism, premises, and symbolism. We all know about the burning of witches and all that stuff. All the true prophets had a mystical experience in which they experienced the divine, either by direct contact with God, an angel, or a heavenly vision. So somehow they had the ability, or learned it, or an angel appeared before somebody. I did a lot of studying on psychic research. We've gone over that in my past videos. We're going to go over it again. There are many stories over in Europe when there would be warring, let's say, between Germany and England. And an English soldier would die on the field in Germany. And they didn't have radio or phones or any way to get that information back to that man's wife. But he would appear at her bedside in a ghost form and say that he wanted to say goodbye. And maybe that he had buried some gold under the horse's stall. And he wanted to take care of his family. And then he would disappear. And then 2 or 3 days later, the carriage would arrive. And the carrier would have a message about her husband dying in battle. And she would say, I already know. He appeared in a vision. This is not old news. This is documented, recorded throughout history. So I guess the first thing people need to do is get their head wrapped around the fact there's more to reality than we know, and the people who are controlling our world want to control us and use all that secret knowledge for their advantage, and they hate Christians, and they think there's too many people on the planet, and they want to destroy 85% of us, and they've been causing war and chaos and mayhem and theft and all kinds of other perversions on people, sexual on children, and sacrificing, drinking blood. We're dealing with something very sinister. I'm talking about the Kabbalah. And again, you can see there's some positive aspects to this. People can learn about this. In the past, when the village needed a Shama, like in Peru, the old Shama was dying or something, a ghost kind of being, an angel or whatever, would appear to a young boy and say, "You're going to be the next Shama." And the young boy, maybe 10 years old, would say, "No, I don't want to be the Shama." And the spiritual being would say, "Well, if you're not going to be the Shama, then you'll die." So he said, "Okay, I'll be the Shama." So then he would start training with the old Shama to become the new one of the village. Regrettably, back then even, some Shamas who had all this knowledge were subject to temptation. And sometimes, the Shama would want somebody's wife. So he would conjure up some kind of potion or some kind of thing to have the guy die to get his wife. So even back then with the shamanism and all this other stuff, there were entities, human beings with souls inside, who would use that knowledge for evil. There's all kinds of people out there. Anyways, moving on. Just some of my learning in my hundreds of books I've read over the past 11 years. Kabbalah borrows ideas from many ancient sources, in addition to the Hebrew Bible, including the ancient mystery schools, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Zoroastrianism, astrology, and magic. This is why people of Orthodox beliefs tend to be suspicious of the Kabbalah and the mystical generally. Kabbalah has influenced many other systems, including Neoplatonism, Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Nicanism, I'm getting these words wrong, Albergianism, and Hasidism. After the biblical times, Judaism entered in what may be called the Hellenistic period, roughly between 323 BC and 200 AD after Christ, so 500 years. Apocalyptic literature was prominent during this period. The Essenes were a fundamentalist Jewish sect, with some of them living monastic lives in monasteries. Hellenistic Jews, such as Philo of Alexandria, interpreted scripture allegorically. The prophet Ezekiel had a vision of Merkabah, the heavenly throne chariot. This became part of the period in which the Talmud was written. The Mishnah of Judah Hashnatzi was codified. The oral tradition of the Torah was written about 200 AD. The Torah is one of the Jewish Bibles. The Palestinian version of the Talmud was completed in the 4th century, and the longer and more influential Babylonian Talmud was completed in the 5th century. In the Orthodox Jewish community, the Talmud became more important than the Torah. So they knew all about this mysticism and magic. They got it in books, and they wanted to dominate societies and kingdoms and money and power. Great. They know how to do magic, and they want to control and kill us. It was written during the period of the Crusades, in which Jews were persecuted, especially in the Peasants' Crusade. It led to a form of mysticism known as the Hashidi Akhenazi, the Pious of Germany. Moving on, Rabbi Moses ben Miriam, known as Menelaus of Rambam, was a Spanish Jewish philosopher and Talmudist. He was born on Cordova, fled to Morocco during the persecution of Jews by the Berbers, and finally to Cairo. So throughout the ages, the Jews were persecuted for some of their activities, and it's becoming clear now, and it's written, that with this New World Order and New Age and the slaughter of most of humanity, they are seeking vengeance. Seeking vengeance. He wrote the Mishnah Torah, which codified rabbinic law and ritual. Guide for the perplexed, written to reconcile reason with faith. He commented on the 10th century book of creation about the Sephirot, the emanation from God. He influenced Albertus Magnus and Thomas Aquinas, famous writers, people. Prophetic Kabbalah was developed by Rabbi Abraham Abulfiyah. He met with Pope Nicholas III in 1280, so 1300 years after Jesus, 1280. The most famous book of Kabbalist literature is the Zohar, Book of Splendor, by Moses de Leon, 1305, a Jewish Spanish mystic. A Spanish Jewish mystic. So you don't believe in witches, do you? He studied Maimonides, Torah, Talmud, and early Kabbalah literature. The Loranic school of Kabbalah was based on the work of Isaac Luria, 1534-1527. He wrote in reaction to the Inquisition, where they were killing everybody, beheading them. Long lines of people lined up to be beheaded. They didn't volunteer. In his Book of Visions, emphasized personal ascension and practical mysticism. This is all New Age stuff too. He sought to bring about the Masonic age. His beliefs included transmigration of souls, where after death the soul would go to another person rather than remain in paradise. An interesting story of Jewish mysticism is the work of Rabbi Judah Loew, 1525 to 1609. They didn't live very long. The Maharai of Prague, and later chief rabbi of Poland. In 1586, we are told, he created a monster. From the mud of the Moldau River, he created a monster. And I have more information on this manifestations of monsters. He created a monster of mud from the Moldau River to protect Jews from the Habsburg Emperor. He made it a living creature by placing the Shem, parchment, with God's name written on it, in its mouth. Eventually, the monster turned on the Jews and its creator, who removed the Shem from its mouth to kill it. The story later became the basis for the Mary Shelley's novel, Frankenstein Monster. So that's where the Frankenstein monster story came from. Masonic mysticism was largely the work of Shabbatai Zevi, 1629-1676, a self-proclaimed messiah and the founder of Sabbatianism. It's all evil stuff here. A lot of the Jews turned from biblical scripture and Jesus Christ and Moses' scripture into this magic stuff, Luciferianism and Satanism. It's a stretch to believe, but when you understand how the mystical world works, like our discussion in voodoo, and frequencies on the body, and herbal medicine, and mysticism, hypnotism, mind control, Montauk, Project Paperclip, MK Ultra, Black Op programs. Yeah, they did some hideous things during the Hitler era. The things they would peel off a man's skin just to see what would happen. All kinds of horrific things to find out how they could control and affect us. Now they use frequencies and electronics and TV and subliminal information. Everybody knows a lot of this. We've seen the old movies where they would flash a hamburger, but you really wouldn't see it, but all of a sudden you think you're hungry. What if they were more sinister about it? Political parties, demonizing Christians. You never know it was coming. The vibration could be feeding the information in your head. Look at all the people out there that look like zombies. Look at those guys who did all those school shootings, church shootings, movie shootings, marathon. Don't they look like they're in some kind of stupor, trance, drugged? I got books on the subject. We're going to go over it. Alright, let's wrap up this Kabbalah stuff. Anyways, Besh for short. Another person back there in history, Rabbi Israel Ben Ezer, Besh for short, he developed a popular form of Kabbalah. He lived during the period of Hashkahala, or Enlightenment, when the beliefs of all traditional religions were threatened by scientific discoveries. Moving on, my neighbor just waved to me while I'm in my little movie production chair out in the backyard with a little table and a camera facing me, which I can see myself talking. But I know people watch the videos, so I'm talking to you who's watching my video. It's got a couple years worth of training doing this. Hopefully I'm getting better. Alright, Jacob Frank, 1726-1791, was a follower of Sabbatai Levi and another false messiah. I've had a lot of false messiahs over the years. Hasidic Kabbalah led eventually to Chabad Lichervich, a powerful ultra-conservative modern Orthodox movement. In the opposite direction, the Reform and conservative movements of Judaism developed. The Reform movement rejected the Talmud and all the powerful rabbinic and resorted to the Torah as the basis of religious beliefs. So you have the Talmud rabbis and you have the Torah rabbis. I suspect in history we prefer to have the Torah, and the Talmud ones are supposed to be the evil ones. Zionism, which we'll discuss in a later chapter, is a secular form of Messianism. Alright, I want to finish this up. The Kabbalah. Here's one of the pictures of the Tree of Life or something. A lot of people are into this New Age stuff. Turning away from God and Jesus and the commandments. Believing Aleister Crowley, who changed his name to spell 666 in the numerology calculator, Crowley. The mark of the beast, the number of the beast. Kabbalah continues to exist in modern times. Recent writers, including Martin Buber, 1878-1965, Abraham Joseph Herschel, 1907-1972. As was mentioned earlier, mysticism is found in all the major religions. In Christianity, there are literally dozens of examples of people who had contact with the divine. You hearing me? Starting with Jesus, who had spoken to by God during his baptism, and again in his transfiguration, according to Christian beliefs. As was mentioned earlier, mysticism is found in all the major religions. In Christianity, there are literally dozens of examples of people who had contact with the divine, starting with Jesus, who was spoken to by God during his baptism, and again in his transfiguration according to Christian beliefs. Paul, converted to Christianity after having a vision of Jesus. John of Patmos wrote the book of Revelation based in part on his vision of heaven. Other Christian mystics include John Casson, Benedict of Nursia, Bernard Collivax, Hildegard of Bingen, Francis of Assyria, Dominic of Caligrugu. I'm sure I'm saying all these wrong. You can get the book and pronounce them wrong yourself. Albertus Magnus, Thomas Aquinas, Julian of Norwich, Thomas of Campus, Ignatius of Loyola. I think he was the guy who created the Jesuits. Teresa of Avignon, Philip Spener, Thomas Merton, Pierre Teilhard, Descartes, to name just a few. Islam has had its share of mystics. The phone ringeth again. So Islam has its share of mystics also, starting with Muhammad, who learned the word of God from an angel, Gabriel, according to Islamic beliefs. The Shia sect is largely mystic. Sufism is the Islamic form of mysticism. Famous Muslim mystics included Essenian Aravirus, Al-Ghazali, I can't say these names, Inbi Arab, and Al-Wahhab. Famous mystics, Muslim mystics include those names. If you harbor negative thoughts about mysticism, hopefully this brief survey will put your mind at rest. So that's what I'm saying. There is such a thing as spiritual entities. But there are good spiritual entities and there are bad. Apparently the biblical story in the Bible of Satan and 1/3 of the angels cast out is likely true. And we are spiritual beings in these bodies, so we have a propensity to either be a good person or a bad person. And that's what the Freemasonic lodges are all about. They recruit people, and they want to determine who will be bad, and they rise up into their empire of dominating the world and cheating and lying and sexual deviancy. We're going to get into that. It's horrific, the things these people are into. The torture, the killing, the mayhem, the sacrificing, the drinking of blood to appease and please these demonic beings. Then they got a subject here, the Sabbatans. I'm not going to get into that. They're a Jewish, so I'll just read the first sentence and you can figure it out. The Sabbatans are a satanic Jewish cult who worship Lucifer rather than Yahweh. They hate the true religions, they hate the true, spit it out, Rick. They hate the true religious Jews, and religious Jews hate the Sabbatans. This is what we're dealing with. This is why I keep saying, not all Jews are these Zionist people. And not all the Zionists are Jews. A lot of the Christian leaders of the churches here in the United States of America and the world have been bribed and taken over by these Zionist monsters. I call them monsters because they're Satanists. They sacrifice people to death. Maybe 8 times a year they have these holidays, like we have Easter or Christmas, President's Day, Labor Day, Memorial Day. These people have these satanic holidays. Probably a lot of people get sacrificed on Halloween, yet all the people in all the cities are out there dressing up and celebrating Halloween, not knowing what it's really all about. They are a rich and powerful elite who are the prime movers of the New World Order and globalization, the Sabbatans. To accomplish their agenda, they corrupt and undermine others' race, religion, nation, and family. Their program includes sexual liberation, sexual promiscuity, interracial sex, independence of women, adultery, incest, internationalism, and cultural diversity. They encourage other Jews to convert to Christianity and to adopt Christian names in order to subvert Christianity from within. 2 of their basic beliefs: do as you will. That's Aleister Crowley. And the end justifies the means. So doing 911 to take over the Middle East is the end justifies the means. They plan to exterminate many of the Gentiles when they complete their quest for global power and control. I said I wasn't going to read this, but the more I look at it, oh my God moment. Well, phone ringeth again. Business is busy. They were active in the Enlightenment, secularism, and modernism. They started the reform and conservative schools of Judaism. They are the cult of the all-seeing eye, Horus, the symbol found on the seal of the United States and the $1 bill, the Sabbatans. So that goes more into that. You can look it up on the internet and probably find Wikipedia or something about the Sabbatans. But we've gone over that. There's some more important things I'd want to go over. There's another chapter called the Enlightenment. And we get the idea. That's introduction into the secret mystery schools. Communism. We will look at that. Communism as we know it today is based largely on the Communist Manifesto, which was drafted by Moses Hess and published by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels in 1848. So communism was a creation by these probably Sabbatan Jewish folks, who are Satanists. The French Revolution of 1789, led by Robespierre and the Jacobins, advocated the centralization of political power in the control of the masses. Communism. Illuminati. Sabbatinism. The elitists, banksters, Rothschilds, Rockefeller, Morgan, Chase, Council of Foreign Relations, Freemasonic lodges, Rosicrucians, witchcraft, Kabbalah, Council of Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, Club of Rome, Bohemian Grove. They go on and on and on, and they got so many secret societies everywhere. York Rite, Scottish Rite, Knights of Malta, Knights of Columbus. They're everywhere. They even have a book, Beware of the Rainbow, I went over. It talks about all this. The Rainbow Coalition, the Gay Agenda, the United Nations, the Meditation Room, which is occultic, the Agenda 21, take away people's property rights, sustainability, global warming, crashing the dollar, nuclear war, World War III, World War I, World War II. They did all this. They have plans. It might behoove us to wake up. Jews were the inventors of modern communism and are its... Remember, get this book if you're interested in this stuff. Just pass it around to your neighbors and friends. And are the leaders of this day. So the communist people are in charge of our country. They infiltrated the United States. They are in cahoots with all these Zionist Jewish folks, the Defamation League, political action committees. They own the press, the printing presses, book publishing, Hollywood, everything. The world, the leaders. A lot of people have been assassinated, killed. This stuff's all real. The next book I'm going to do is going to be The Bomb. But I wanted to do these in a sequence. Different authors, different perspective, different decoding of the information. A German economist came from a long line of Jewish rabbis, Karl Marx. Although he himself was an atheist, he dismissed God as irrelevant. Remember, there is a spiritual world. So I don't think it might behoove us to dismiss God as irrelevant when we're spiritual beings, and when we leave this world, we're going to that world. So if you go and want to wind up in a gated community or down in the slums, little metaphor there, it might behoove us to pay attention. I'd rather be in one of God's mansions, not down there in the molten lava pits. Little humor. Alright, he would dismiss God as irrelevant, not able to help humanity. He described religion as a fiction which makes life bearable for the oppressed. The opiate of the masses. Remember Rabbi Marvin Antelman writing the book to eliminate the opiate? And Karl Marx says he described religion as a fiction which makes life bearable for the oppressed. The opiate of the masses. Judaism was no longer a religion, he said, but a worldly cult of Jews whose God was money. Of course, the same thing could be said of a lot of number of Christians today. Yeah, a lot of people have turned traitor to humanity. Turned over to the dark side. Friedrich Engels, 1826-1895, was a German economist. He studied the work of Moses Hess and converted to communism. He became a longtime collaborator of Karl Marx. In 1847, the Communist League commissioned the writing of a manifesto of their principles. Moses Hess wrote the first draft. Marx and Engels completed it and published it on February 1848. They wrote of alienation, in which labor sells itself to capitalists, who they then own the product and profit from us. That's the New World Order. Think of the movie Hunger Games. The Jewish elite saw communism as a way to gain control of the world from the bottom up. It was another means of achieving Jewish supremacy over the hated Gentiles. Later in the 19th century, Jews developed Zionism, a plan to gain the world control from the top down. So there's more here, but I'm going to just move on and get to Zionism. Just giving you a sampling of what's in here. Moses Hess, 1812-1875, one of the founders of the communism. He was also a leader in the Zionist movement. Zionist is communist. In 1862, he advocated the establishment of a Zionist government in Palestine. 1862. They were planning to move people to Palestine. Prior to the 1946 allocation, annexation of Palestine, part of it, a small part of it, for a Jewish state, which now owns most of it. If you go on Zionism and Images, you'll look and see the maps. How every year they get more and more and more, and now the Palestinians have very little left, and now they're overthrown all the countries all over the Middle East. That with 9/11 being the kickoff for that they did and created, which controls all of our politicians, so it was an inside job. And now they're vying for all those other countries, from the Nile to the Euphrates. Just saying, all this stuff is planned, since, as you can see, that this author wrote, smarter guy than me. I was thinking about writing books and all that, but as I started researching, I realized that a lot of the stuff that I would begin to research had already been written. And who was investigating the investigators? Who was reading all these books and getting the information out to the public that were published years ago that maybe you can't find at the bookstore anymore? So I thought there is a goal for me, a mission that I could accept. Investigating the investigators. And I have decided, from my investigation, that some of these authors are sincere, and a lot of books, as we're going to find out, were published by people promoting propaganda, the New Age. What was that one publishing company called Lucifer Trust, which then went into Lucas Trust, and got to have a lot of those New Age books and other publications and tools out there programming the masses. The initial objective of Zionism was to establish a Jewish homeland in Palestine and to encourage as many Jews as possible to the diaspora to settle there. We went over Aliyah in the last video. So for the last 100 years, they've been bribing, paying, forcing people to move there. Just like that one guy, the American Jew who moved to Israel, book we went over, An American Jew in Israel. Once a foothold was established, the territory could gradually be extended to become Greater Israel, a land from the Nile to the Euphrates. As I said, that's a good sized chunk of land. Now you know why all those Arabs are fleeing for their lives. It's all been caused. Which God had promised to the Israelites in biblical times. Yeah, but they broke the deal. They didn't follow the covenants of God, so they were dispersed by God. And God hasn't given them back that land. But they don't want you to know that. Eventually, the Masonic Age would be established, with Israel ruling the world from Jerusalem. Zionism was promoted by infiltrating the highest level of society in order to gain control from the top down. It was the upper arm of the pincer, of which communism, moving from the bottom up, was the lower arm. Zionism pursued the race-based colonialism, while communism envisioned an agrarian utopia. Zionist leaders worked with the Fabian societies in the United Kingdom. Go look up the Fabian societies. The symbol is a wolf in sheep's clothing. A sheep in wolf's clothing. Or a wolf in sheep's clothing. Getting it backwards. So a wolf has a sheep's head and skin over it. So everybody thinks it's a sheep, but it's really a wolf. Go look up Fabian society. I've been doing this for an hour or so now. I'm probably getting a little worn. In 1896, Dr. Theodor Herschel, an Austrian author and journalist, wrote The Jewish State, which advocated a Jewish homeland in Palestine. 1896. So all this havoc, all these world wars, all this stuff, creating of the Federal Reserve in the United States in 1913 to gain control of the United States and the United States money supply. We're not free anymore. They control us. And they're bent on destroying us. Go get the book. Or any of the other books I've gone over. Or all the other books I'm going to go over. Providing I can. The British government offered Uganda, then a British colony, to the Zionists as a future homeland. But the offer was later rejected. The Zionists were intent on gaining Palestine. Then as now, most of the Zionist leaders were wealthy Jews who had business and social contacts with Christian political leaders. In the United Kingdom, early supporters of Zionism included Alfred Balfour, Lloyd George, and Winston Churchill. In the United States, Rabbi Stephen Wise was the chief Zionist organizer. Other leading Zionists include Bernard Baruch, Louis Brandeis, Benjamin Cardozo. They gained support of President Woodrow Wilson and his chief advisor Edward Mandell Howells. In November 2, 1917, Alfred Balfour, then Foreign Secretary of the UK, issued the Balfour Declaration to Lord Rothschild. It promised the British support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. At the time, Palestine was still part of the Ottoman Empire, against which General Alabi was engaged in war. Interesting, Jews achieved another major goal that same week. The Bolsheviks overthrew the Tsar in Russia. We know then that it killed all his family, and 100 million Christians and other good people died in the next 10 years. They do what they call as a purge whenever they have a revolution. Anybody who knows the truth, or could be any kind of a leader, any kind of a threat, they kill them all. But in this case of the revolution to come, the New World Order and the New Age, they want to kill billions. And they probably want to fabricate some gigantic war to make the parties kill each other. That's what they do. Interestingly, Jews achieved another major goal. We got that. In 1920, there were more than 800,000 Arab Muslims and Christians living in Palestine. 1920. Jews started immigrating there in small numbers, but were disliked by the native Palestinians. Battles broke out from time to time. they're coming in and trying to take over. I guess a battle would break out. Many Jews left the Pale of Settlement due to persecution by the Russians. Some went to Palestine, but the large numbers by far came to the United States. And Henry Ford wrote a lot about that. And they were the Yiddish Jews, and they were just taunting and arrogant to all the American citizens and businesses, and took over theaters and publishing and liquor businesses. It was an invasion that really caused a lot of havoc and destruction in the United States by these people. It is what it is. Hitler came to power in Germany in 1933. His anti-Semitic haringers struck fear in the hearts of German Jews. And Hitler was sponsored and supplied money by and controlled by these Zionist Jews. And they wanted the Jews to leave Germany to go to Palestine. Get it? Got it? So the Jews wanted the Jews to move, and Hitler was the tool. World War II was the tool. And a lot of other countries. And that's the problem with Iran right now. There are many Jews living there who don't want to move. So they got to attack Iran and make them be hated so they will move. The World Jewish Congress declared economic war on Germany. Hitler responded by repressive measures against Jews. So now the Jews will go to Palestine. They wouldn't have left. He made a deal with Lord Rothschild, Hitler, to transfer German Jews to Palestine, but not many went. He then began forcibly transporting them out of the country in massive numbers, mostly to Poland, where they became slave laborers and their property confiscated. During World War II, Zionists in Palestine were secretly armed as part of the war effort. Increasing hostility of the Palestinians led to the formation of terrorist groups by the Jews, such as Eigun and the Stern Gang. In 1948, the State of Israel was declared, fulfilling the primary Zionist goal. The work of all ages. And then we have the protocols we've gone over. And I'm just going to read the first paragraph. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion are one of the most important and most debated writings of all time. Their very origin as a Jewish document was denied at first, but later admitted. Apparently, the version introduced at the first Zionist conference in 1897 was the work of a Masonic lodge. Remember, my series is Freemasonry and Satanism. Of Mitzram in Paris. Adolf Krimenex, head of the lodge, and Joseph Levi, a member, may have headed the effort. Other contributors may have included Lionel Rothschild, Moses Hess, and Theodor Herschel, who wrote The Jewish State, of course. So I highlighted a lot and I read a lot, but I want to get this video over. I think people get the point. The Federal Reserve System I keep talking about. Myra Amschel Rothschild once said, "Let me control a nation's money, and I don't care who writes the laws. The power of money is so great that it leads to control of everything else." So as I keep saying, in 1913, December 21st, while everybody was on Christmas vacation, senators and representatives, Mr. Wilson and these people conspired to create the Federal Reserve, hence taking over control of the United States of America. And 9 times since then, they've crashed the dollar or banks and system bubbles. And then they buy everything on pennies of the dollar, and then they let us prosper another 10 or 20 years, then they crash it again. Last 100 years. What a system. We keep working, aspiring. Now they don't want us to be homeowners because you can attain some wealth, accumulate some interest, in your home. So they're making the United States, the new term is, a country of renters. They do not want us to gain any wealth. Wealth is power. They're destroying us intentionally. That's why I go over these books. Jews have been active in the banking business since biblical times and naturally have developed a great deal of experience in financial matters. Alright, so all that's in this book. You can go get it. Tells the story as I've been telling over and over and over again. Then you got the Holocaust in this book. Then you got the state of Israel in this book. As we saw in chapter 21, the Balfour Declaration in 1917, during World War I, promised Great Britain support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine. So in 1920, it was inhabited about 800,000 Arab, Muslims, and Christians, and a few other groups. The Yishya, a Jewish community in Palestine, was very small. When Hitler came to power in Nazi Germany in 1933, Jews were severely persecuted. Lord Rothschilds and the Zionists negotiated a Havara to transfer agreement with Hitler, which allowed the transfer of some Jewish assets to Palestine. Between 1933 and 1939, about 235,000 Jews left Germany for Palestine. Remember, it was the banking institutions who financed Hitler. So the Zionist Jews were behind Hitler, and you can get the book Who Financed Hitler by the Pools, I keep mentioning. Gaining control of American culture. So everything I've been saying all along, all these books I've been going over, it's just supported by author after author after author after author. And believe me, I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. Friends of mine would say, Rick, yeah, this is all crazy. Who's behind it? Years ago. And I'd say, I don't know. It's weird. But when you go over it and over and over it, you start to find out that it's pretty biblical. It's been going on the work of all ages. They're destroying us and ruining our lives and destroying our children, destroying the families, destroying our culture. Creating a religion of the New Age with the gay agenda and all that, that is abhorrent to God, is an insult to God, intended to make God angry, a vengeance against God, by the cast out Satan and 1/3 of the angels. Incommunicado with the satanic religion and all these secret mystery schools of Babylon, with people here on earth, conspiring for our doom and want to destroy Christianity. I didn't make this stuff up. I just read the books and there you go. The Zionist goal for world domination requires gaining control of every nation in the world. They have learned the importance of keeping a low profile, using people and organizations to front for them, and keeping the Jewish leadership behind the scenes as much as possible. They're demonizing the Arabs. And they're fleeing. The Arabs are fleeing, and all the European countries, including the United States, supposedly going to get 10,000 or 100,000, as Obama said, of the Syrians. So when they gain the next step, then the next step, and the United States is destined to be destroyed if we let them. If people don't wake up. Their methods come from many sources, including the Rothschild protocols, the Order of the Illuminati, the Communist Manifesto, Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, and the Humanist Manifesto. In keeping with the dictum that the ends justify the means, they use any techniques necessary to achieve their goal, including propaganda, disinformation, deception, secret espionage, blackmail, and physical force. And I'll add 911. Jews have always been among the leaders of change and even of revolutions over the centuries. That is one of the reasons why the Jews are often disliked by the Goyim and become the victims of oppression. Yet that very anti-Semitism helps to keep them united in their fight for world supremacy. So the hatred of all the people of being treated badly by these Zionist Jewish folks creates, I guess, the anti-Semitism that they say, which all Arabs are pretty much Semite natives, like Mexicans are Mexicans, and Asians are Asians, Arabs are Semites. So you can't really be anti-Semite unless you're just against all the Arabs, Jewish or otherwise. And we don't even know that all these Jewish Zionist people are even real Hebrews, as it says in Revelation, Jews who call themselves Jews but are not, Revelation 9. One of the key planks of the Communist Manifesto was free public education for children. This allowed Jews to control the information going into the impressionable minds of the young. And I'm going to add that the TV and cartoons and all that, if you watch them, is definitely getting to the kids. Jeez Louise. One of my neighbors is walking a dog, and these other neighbors' dogs up on the patio are just barking there and crying their brains out. I had to stop the video. Moving on here, if they can get to the children by the time they're the age 7, they have them for life. It's all a plan. Think the kids down the street look like zombies? It's all a plan. Remember Pokemon? Now the kids and young people look like Pokemons. Another concept which helped the Jewish cause was secular humanism, which held that the religion was irrelevant in modern society. God is dead, and man can take over where God left off. If there ever was a God. This is what people believe. They've been brainwashed. Little common sense and thinking. Little research, reading a book. Read a book about a doctor or a nurse at a hospital watching people die and seeing the energy field leave the body. Read about out-of-body out-of-body experiences. Children who die in the hospital come back to life and tell the story. Psychic research. All these apparitions. All of this. John Dewey was an early leader in the public education system. He was an advocate for progressive education, liberalism, and secular humanism. His idea was to indoctrinate the children into becoming faithful servants and secular rulers. More recently, Jews have focused on getting control of local school boards, determining the curriculum, what is taught into the students, and control of the National Education Association and the Teachers' Main Union. According to anything to do with Christianity has been removed from public schools. They're bringing us Satanism and they're removing Christianity. Get it? Got it? If you do any research at all, it'll become very plain. Freemasonic manuals, lodge books, writings, morals, and dogma. Other Jewish ideas found their way into American law. Starting in 1870, Harvard Law School started teaching that the Constitution was an evolving document. They want to get rid of our Constitution. They want to change it. Particularly, they want to disarm the American people who are going to resist the satanic religion. The process was similar to the development of the Talmud, which expresses the opinions of the rabbis and often leads to mutually contradictory laws, which adds confusion to the situation, which is one of the goals of the protocols of Zion. The idea is to sow confusion by conflicting ideas in order to wear everyone out. And that's why in 2008, an overwhelming amount of people were against gay marriage. And in 2009, there was a little less against it. A little more in 2010, 2011, 2012. They eat away commercials, stories, newspapers, making the poor little gay person feel like a victim of society. Constituting just a couple percent of our society, the other 90-something% is forced to turn to the dark side. And if they don't submit, when the revolution happens, the New World Order, is that what's going to happen? Is this a celestial battle in heaven between the good and the bad? Are we part of the warriors and we have to choose a side? Many of the Jews who immigrated to America settled in New York, where they developed considerable political power. You know, when you're financed and supported by a huge amount of people, it's probably pretty easy for anybody to make it. And then when you got these kinds of people trying to destroy other people from getting anywhere, it makes it even harder for people like me to be in business, or people like you and other people to get decent jobs and rise up to powerful positions. If If you don't sell out to Satanism, and they test you, they want to find out. They want to have something on you. That's how the Freemasonic lodges and other institutions, Skull and Bones. Many of the Jews, I said that here. Another Jewish invention was the Institute for Social Research, also known as the Frankfurt School, which was organized in 1923 in Frankfurt, Germany, to promote the plan for world domination by gaining control and culture of the nations. So prior to World War II, after World War I, they were creating these institutions, and one would have to wonder why Hitler would want to get them out of Germany. But then Hitler was a pawn in the game and playing to the tune that the Rothschilds wrote. The rest of us citizens of the world were deceived. They developed critical theory to destroy Western culture, bringing existing society down by means of unremitting destructive criticism. When Hitler came to power in Germany, the school moved to New York and changed its name to the New School of Social Research. Its members included many people in social sciences, such as Erich Fromm in psychology, Herbert Marcus in political science, and Franz Boas in anthropology. One of the lasting effects of cultural communism is political correctness. A vital aspect of cultural control is the media, by which the public gets most of its information about the world. Naturally, Jews put on a great deal of emphasis on controlling the information which reaches the public. Their control of the newspapers goes back more than a century, 100 years. They gradually took control of radio, television, theater, movies, magazine, book publishing, school books, and the recording industry. One of the best ways to weaken a country is to encourage the breakup of the family unit. To this end, Jews support secular humanism, interracial marriage, abortion, gay rights, same-sex marriages, and civil liberation. Jewish influence sometimes extends to seemingly unlikely situations. For example, during World War II, General George Patton was one of the most effective generals, but he criticized the conspiracy of international banksters, labor leaders, Jews, and communists. Jews forced his dismissal as head of the Third Army. So don't get in their way. I don't even want to start talking again about how many people have been murdered in the last few years. Jews are prominent in virtually every aspect of American culture. For example, in the 1960s, folk music was used with revolutionary lyrics to promote their cause. Famous Jewish movie actors include Sammy Davis Jr., a black convert to Judaism, Mel Brooks, John Garfield, and Barbra Streisand. In summary, all America remains nominally a predominantly Christian nation. Jews have managed to gain their ideas across the vast majority of Americans. One could fairly say that America has become a Jewish in its outlook. The Zionist goal of world domination requires gaining control of every nation in the world, preferably by subtle means to win the hearts of the people. The media. I'm just going to say that they control the media. Most people should know that by now. Okay, attacks on the Vatican. They've infiltrated the Vatican. They planned on infiltrating the Vatican. It's in their documents. The recent attacks on the Vatican and criticism of Pope Benedict XVI are just the latest of a long series of Jewish attacks on its arch-enemy, the Roman Catholic Church. The Church has always been deemed anti-Semitic by the Jews, particularly regarding the issue of the crucifixion of Jesus. So we know that the Jesuits were part of the... Look at this picture. Traitor. Stabbing the Statue of Liberty. Espionage. So there's been all kinds of stuff going on, espionage. From biblical times, Jews have made a specialty of espionage and intelligence activities. Ever since the Assyrians captured Samaria in 722 BC, before Christ, and drove the 10 northern tribes out of Israel, starting the diaspora, where all the Jews were spread out over the world. Now they got a liar where they're all coming back. Jews have had to maintain written contact with each other in order to maintain their unity. Jews have had to use their espionage skills against their arch enemy, the Roman Catholic Church. As Jews got more and more involved in international banking, their intelligence operations grew apace. One notable result of their activity was the financial killing of Nathan Rothschild, which Nathan Rothschild made as a result of knowledge of the Napoleon defeat at Waterloo, a day before the news became general knowledge. So he bought up all the stocks that everybody sold off or something. In more recent times, Jews were instrumental in organizing MI5, the Secret Service, MI6, the Secret Intelligence Service in the United Kingdom in 1909, and shortly before World War I, what broke out, Jews occupied many positions in these agencies today. After the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia in 1917, Jews controlled the government, including the Cheka, the secret police. They were active in Soviet and Russian intelligence and its various organizations. MGB, KGB, FSR, CVR. William Wiseman was one of the members of the Room, an early intelligence organization in the United States, which also included Vincent Astor, Alan Dulles, William Donovan, and others. During World War II, MI6 helped organize the Office of Strategic Services in 1941. This group was headed by Ivy League's WASP, but many Jews were included in the ranks. In 1946, the United Kingdom's United States Communications Intelligence Agreement was reached, which also included Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It set up a number of listening stations around the world to monitor radio traffic. Today it runs the Echelon program, which monitors all telephone, facsimile, and internet messages worldwide, and we've known how much they've grown in their surveillance of all of us since then. There's just a bunch of stuff here about some of their espionage operations that they were involved in. In May 2007, President Bush authorized black operations to support a regime change in Iran. In recent years, the CIA has resorted to severe torture of prisoners, referred to as enhanced interrogation techniques such as waterboarding, rape, sleep deprivation, beatings, and many other cruelties. They used rendition in which they kidnap suspects, and fly them to black sites in remote lands for torture. Oh my. In 2009, the CIA hired Blackwater Worldwide as assassination contractors. They worked against insurgents in Iraq and Afghanistan. The CIA also worked with other private contractors in a variety of services. I'm getting tired in my speaking. In summary, the elite founded international espionage to protect their far-reaching investments, dealing in drugs, gold, and commodities. Jewish global governance is nearly complete. And now we come to the horrible part, the police state. Jade Helm, putting troops all across the United States. We all know about this. I keep saying it was all planned. It was all planned. Get this book. I'm sure I didn't do it justice. I just skipped over stuff. Just wanted to give you the gist of what was in here. In accordance to Protocol 1, the Jewish elites start with the premise that most people are inherently inclined to evil and therefore must be dealt with by force and fear. Violating the Constitution was no longer a problem because they controlled the legal system as well as the President and the Congress. And I've been saying that. Jews use the principle of gradualization, tightening the screws a little at a time in order to prevent a revolution by the people. And of course, their involvement was kept from the stupid goyim, that's what they call us, until they were completely enslaved. Let's review some of the major steps along the way by which Jews demolished the Constitution and Bill of Rights and took control of America. Aldous Huxley in Brave New World in 1932. This novel predicted a world in which Big Brother would rule everyone and drugs would pacify the people. Well, they're doing that. Another Fabian socialist, George Orwell, wrote another similar book titled 1984. Have you ever read that book? Pretty horrible. Published in 1949, and he was a Fabian. That's the wolves in sheep's clothing. The Humanist Manifesto was published in 1933 by John Dewey and others. So when you're watching my videos, I should have pad and pencil in hand and take some notes and look this stuff up. It placed human beings over God and led to the corruption of American morality. So all this is part of the action to create the police state. The Travis Stock Institute of Human Relations was formed in England in 1947 to do research on psychological control of the masses. Did you hear me? Psychological control of the masses. They've been working on this 50, 60, 70 years. They're skilled at this. Later, the Aspen Institute was formed in the United States for the same purpose. On May 1, 1954, a research paper entitled Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars was produced. It told of many devices for controlling human thought processes to win the heart and minds of people. May 1st is an important date of the Illuminati. The concept of police departments providing protection to the public gradually gave way to law enforcement protecting the government. Remember that. The gun control of 1968 was a federal attempt to disarm. 68, they've been trying to disarm us. And to restrict ownership of guns by average Americans. Readiness Exercise 1984, also known as Rex 84, was an exercise to test the federal government's ability to rule the country independently of the states. Operation Cable Splicer was a test of replacing state and local governments with 10 regional federal government under FEMA. There's more I could go over, but you get it. So where are we today? We're at the crossroads. This brings us to a major crossroad. I didn't read any part of this book that I should have read. There's much more. Just a small portion I read. Go buy the book if you're interested. It's all here. This guy's smarter than me, Peter Christian. I started reading books. I realized I could study one subject and maybe become very proficient and write a book. And all the ideas that I came up with that I wanted to write about, I found books were already written. So that gave me the idea about reviewing these books, exposing the information, motivating people to go get the books, and believing in it themselves. That's the biggest problem, is normalcy bias. A lot of people don't want to believe all this propaganda and planning really exist. And slowly, they're bringing us closer to this Hunger Games type of world. And they will if we let them. Thank you for watching my video. Rick Miracle reporting.